Many people know her as the woman who taught the Constitution to Bernie Sanders when he was in high school. Others know that she started teaching high school government classes when she was just 19. Few know that she is, therefore, 79 years old. And she will tell you that the secret to not aging is actually to chew cinnamon gum while doing yoga on a mat made of aluminum foil, something she does every day. She's retiring after this year, and the federal government may never be the same. Please welcome Ms. Holtsford. You and Bernie. Number 2. We are not sure who actually invited this 6th grader here today.
She works here. Julie, she works here.
She does?
Yeah, she's worked here for a while.
You do?
I work here.
Oh, okay. So, Mrs. So this is Miss Frederick. I did not know that. Okay, Ms. Naslin, you have the magic envelope. Oh, I don't have it. I'm sorry. I failed. Here's the magic envelope.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to give them their topics. And you need to write these down because they all have to be in your story.
Got it.
Your first character is a slowpoke. Slowpoke. Would you like me to spell it?
No.
See what we did there? Good. Okay. Your next character is a person mistaken for a movie star. A person mistaken for a movie star. That's a good picture of you, Holtz.
What?
That one.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Your situation is.
I take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Your situation is something in the glove box.
You know what?
Oh my gosh!
What? I'm 75.
Something in the glove box! You got it? Maybe we shouldn't have put you up against the 6th grader. Your setting is a garage sale. A slowpoke, someone mistaken for a movie star, something in the glove box, and a garage sale. Go. All right. Mr. Ebling is going to introduce to you our next faculty presenter.
Yeah. So we've got someone coming to tell a story for you guys, which is going to be exciting. So hailing from the coffee bean mountains of Mount Nicaragua, Mr. Akers' tolerance to caffeine is the stuff of legend. In fact, he can't stay up for more than 52 minutes straight, no matter what. This is not narcolepsy, folks. No, just a physical body that refuses to let life get in the way of a good nap. It is for this reason that he proposed the new 45-minute-long class schedule and worked so passionately, albeit for a max of 52 minutes at a time, to get our new daily schedule passed. So let's give him a big thank you and welcome Mr. Akers.
I'm going to share a story about my personal life, just to let you know a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in a small town, Robinson, Illinois. It's about 5 hours south of here. When I was living there, there was about just under 7,000 people for the population of Robinson. We were about an hour away from the closest mall or the closest movie theater. So if you can imagine, there really wasn't much surrounding Robinson except oil pumps and farmland. All right. I am also the youngest of 5 children. I have 3 older brothers and an older sister. My father is a minister. My mom was a Christian educator and taught preschool for many years. And so you can imagine living in a small town when your dad's a minister and your mom's a teacher. A lot of people then knew who I was. All right? In Robinson, there were 4 schools. We had Washington Grade School, which was kindergarten through 3rd grade. And then we had Lincoln Grade School, which was 4th through 5th. And then we had Nuttall Middle School. And I promise that is the name of the middle school that I went to. Nuttall Middle School was 6th through 8th. And then Robinson High School, obviously, 9th through 12th grade. And so remember, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. So when I started school, I was known as the youngest Akers. I don't think teachers really knew my first name for the longest time because I was always the youngest Akers, being the youngest of 5 kids. So that's kind of what it was like for me growing up in a small town. And to give you another example of that, when I started 8th grade, the first day of my history class with Mr. Rainey, when he was taking attendance, he saw my name, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, the final Akers. I can finally retire." And he literally, that was his last year. He retired after that year. So whether it was because of the Akers family, I'm not sure. So that gives you a small snippet of what it was like for me growing up in a small town and being in those schools. So when I entered 2nd grade, I learned something about myself that kind of changed my life. See, it was in 2nd grade I was diagnosed with a learning disability. I don't remember a name being given to the disability, but I had trouble spelling. It affected my reading and how I comprehended what I was reading. All right? And then it also affected how I retained information in class and in school. So it was a struggle. And so I was placed in the LD program, which is the Learning Disability Program. And they don't use that language today in school. But so I was placed in that. I had special classes that I would go to. And at that point in time, I didn't really understand what that meant for me. I just knew that I went to a special class. I just knew that I went there to get special help. I was put in a different reading group than some of my other classmates. I just saw it as I was getting extra help in school and that I got an extra teacher that not all the other students got. So I didn't really comprehend what it meant for me to have a learning disability. But that changed very quickly when I was in 4th grade. The way that I was thinking about my disability changed in an instant. You see, it was a chilly fall afternoon, and I was in 4th grade, and I was outside for recess, and I was sitting on a metal railing. Instead of playing my usual game of handball with my friends, I chose to sit on the metal railing, which was intended to keep us on the blacktop and off the grass, because I was sitting with my then girlfriend, Megan, and we were holding hands. I know. And as we were sitting there, one of our classmates came over and started talking with us. His name was Steve Zellers. He was a friend of mine. And I'm not sure what we were talking about. I mean, we were obviously talking about things that 4th grade guys talk about when they're holding their girlfriend's hand. That means I really have no idea what we were talking about. But it must have been something due to sports or our ability to participate in sports. Because I remember vividly the next exchange that I had with Steve. I turned to Steve and said, "You're fat and slow, and you can't do that because you're fat." I'm not proud of what I said, right? But I obviously hurt Steve's feelings because the next words that came out of his mouth were a punch to my heart. He was obviously upset, and he was retaliating against me, which I deserved at that moment. So Steve said to me, "You're stupid. At least I don't have to take special classes." And I just sat there on the railing for a split second because I was shocked. Not because of what Steve said and the way he retaliated against me, I deserve that, but because he called me stupid. Tears began to fall down my cheek because it was at that moment that I realized that I was in special classes because I was stupid. So I began to think differently about my learning disability that day on the playground. School was hard for me. It was a struggle. And it was in 4th grade, right after Steve's words, that I began to realize that I am a little different than some of the other kids. See, I knew that I was smarter than Tim and Cindy, who were in my LD classes, but I wasn't as smart as Megan and Steve, who were in my regular class. And I didn't understand what that meant. I just know that I started to believe what Steve said to me on the playground. I started to believe that I was stupid and that I wasn't going to be able to learn and that I was worthless. I started to believe that stigma that came with having a learning disability. I believed that I wasn't capable of learning. So soon after that day on the playground, I began to feel worthless, that I couldn't learn. I believed that I was limited on what I could learn and limited on what I was going to be able to achieve. When I was in 4th grade, I started to become very self-conscious about my learning disability. I started to really dread school. But when I entered junior high, when I entered 6th grade, that insecurity grew. And I began to hide it with humor and trying to have an outgoing personality so no one could tell. But it was also in 6th grade that my LD teacher, Mrs. Slocum, changed my life. In 6th grade, my life started to change. It wasn't a quick change, and it was all because Mrs. Slocum, my LD teacher, showed confidence in me. She taught me that I had the ability to learn. I could spell, I could read, but I was just going to be doing that a little differently. It was just going to take me a little longer than the other kids in my grade. So she taught me the skills that I needed to learn. She taught me that it's just going to take me a little longer to do these things that some of the kids in my grade were doing. So starting in 6th grade, I made the honor roll. And that continued till I graduated high school. Because Mrs. Slocum showed me the skills that I needed in order to study, in order to retain information. See, I was only able to achieve that because Mrs. Slocum showed confidence in me, and more importantly, she showed confidence in my ability to learn. So she gave me a confidence that I didn't have. When I entered high school as a freshman, I was still very insecure, and I struggled with school. It was difficult. But I had that confidence that Mrs. Slocum gave me, and I had those skills that she had taught me, and I was confident enough once I figured out how to be a freshman in high school, right, I was able to exit the LD program. I had the confidence in my abilities that I felt that I didn't need to be in that program. And so I exited the LD program. All right, and so I finished high school. Like I said, I was able to make the honor roll till I graduated. All right, I went on to college. All right, I got a Bachelor of Arts degree. Then I went on to seminary and got my master's degree. And I'm not telling you this to brag, but that was a struggle for me. College and seminary, not only was the work difficult, the papers, the studying, the large amount of reading I had to do, but emotionally. Emotionally, I struggled because I still was very insecure about my learning disability and how difficult it was for me to read and comprehend what I was reading. I mean, to this day, I still have a learning disability. It didn't go away in 6th grade. So today, I'm still insecure about it. I'm still insecure about my learning disability. School was always hard for me, all the way through. But I was able to learn and figure out what I needed to do to study and to retain information. But I was only able to do that because Mrs. Slocum showed confidence in me and in my own ability to learn. My family was very supportive through this whole time, through my whole school career. But it was Mrs. Slocum, my 6th grade LD teacher, who provided me with the confidence I needed to break through this barrier that I had put on myself, thinking that I wasn't able to learn. And I wasn't able to achieve very much. See, with this confidence, I was able to really see what I was capable of doing, what I was able to achieve. And that understanding of what I'm able to achieve, that's at the very core of why I teach, why I coach, and for the last 5 years, how I parent my children. Someone showed confidence in me that I was able to achieve great things. And that's at the core of why I have a passion of working and teaching with young people. You see, that all emerged from the struggles and the challenges I had through school, and then the confidence that was given to me by Mrs. Slocum when I was in 6th grade. Thank you.
Okay, we have some time for questions before our improv writers come out. So does anyone in the audience have a question for Mr. Akers, either just about his experience that he just beautifully told us about, or about his writing process of how he came up with telling that story? Okay, I'm going to start with one. You decided to kind of make notes for yourself and then speak your story almost in like the oral tradition of storytelling rather than reading it. What makes that a more comfortable method of delivery for you?
Well, a lot of the writing I do is stuff like this where I present it. So it's not necessarily something that's going to be published, though that's how I approach the writing, is very conversational. Obviously, that's a very personal story. So I have those memories, but I still write them down, and then I will make my notes so that I get my words, choose my words that I want to share with you. But the main point is that I want to be conversational in what I share. So it doesn't sound like something you're necessarily going to read in a scholarly book, but it's the words that I would use in having a conversation with you.
Mr. Akers, I'm just wondering, like, when you do this sort of writing, this sort of presentation, I'm wondering what your notes actually look like. Like, are we talking an outline? Are we talking just kind of thoughts? I know some people will use the whole, like, bubbles.
What I do is I have the full transcript there, in case for whatever reason I get stuck on something and I forget an idea, but I highlight like the beginning statements, the beginning ideas, so that I can see what I have highlighted and then my mind can go through what I have written. But again, everything underneath there, I have the full transcript. If I do get stuck on something, I can see the main thought that I have highlighted and easily find where I'm at.
There's a question down here in front.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Did you devote most of your school time to academics, or did you do like other things outside of school, like sports or something?
Through high school, I was in sports, yeah. I was football and track, but then I was on student council and a couple other groups like that, and I played 1 year of college football and then was involved with student council, and a big part was my church group that I was involved in. So I did do other extracurricular activities as well throughout school.
There's another question? Okay. We only have one mic right now. Okay.
How would you approach another situation like you had with Steve, like that encounter?
How would I approach that today or when I was that age?
Or just any time in the future?
In the future. Well, I think I probably would not have said what I said. You know, as a naive fourth grader, that probably was not a polite thing to do and not a very respectful thing. So I like to think I've matured a little bit since fourth grade. But I mean, I think I probably would have been able to handle his response better because today I'm more confident with my learning disability. I can kind of take that. Not that it wouldn't have been hurtful, but I obviously probably wouldn't have been as upset as I was. So I think it's just a maturing and an acceptance that I've come to gain with my learning disability.
Anyone else have questions? Okay. Making me work for this.
Sorry. Can you explain to me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much you enjoy directing traffic in the morning?
Thank you.
I will give it a 7. But when it's -10, I'll give it a 0. When it's -10 degrees.
Anyone else have a question? Oh, there's one over here. Is it about directing traffic?
What made you decide to do such a personal story?
Well, a lot of when I present, for some of you that may not know, I am also an ordained minister, so that's some of when I write, that's what I'm doing. And I chose to do that story specifically here because those are the type of messages and the type of writing that I do on a regular basis. So hopefully that someone was able to connect and relate to my story of being able to be confident in their own abilities and be able to achieve what they want to achieve. So just kind of a motivational purpose behind it.
Oh, over here.
Other than that woman inspiring you and use your confidence, what else did you use to build up your confidence?
So what else did I use to build up my confidence? Not only like the teacher, Mrs. Slocum, that helped me find that to begin with, but I also had a lot of other people in my life that supported me, especially my family members and my parents. And so those were key elements. I had a couple coaches in high school that I looked up to, Coach Cork and Coach Taylor. They helped me not only in the classroom, but also helped me realize what my abilities were in sports and also leadership roles.
What ended up happening to you and Megan?
Well, we were kind of off and on through 4th grade and dated again in junior high. Okay. But she was one of my closest friends growing up through school. And we still keep in contact. She now actually lives in Missouri and is married and has kids. So, and I'm married and have kids, so we're... But no, she did end up being one of my closest friends through school.
I have a question for you. I know a lot of people use writing like in a very personal way and like they don't share it out necessarily. What is your relationship with writing and why do you write?
I don't do like a plethora of writing. Do you like that big word that I threw out there that I wouldn't necessarily say on a regular basis? But like I said, when I write, it's mainly what I'm going to be presenting. But I do keep like small stories that I will come up with that I can be able to kind of put them into a presentation that fits depending on the subject matter or topic that I'm going to be talking about. Because there's a lot of stories that can fit into certain topics. And so I don't write on a regular basis, but again, I try to sit down and write something occasionally so that, one, I don't get out of practice, and two, that I can have those to go to if I need them.
You were great. That was so wonderful.
Give Mr. Akers some love.
Okay, we are going to bring out our two narrative writers, Ms. Holtsford, Ms. Frederick. They're going to read their story to you. Now let's see if we can remember.
No, I don't mind. Yeah.
That is perfect. Please do sit on the couch. Yeah. Can you tell us the 4 things again? Because I've already forgotten. Garage sale.
I'm nervous talking to you.
Something in a glove box. Someone being mistaken for a celebrity. And a slowpoke. Okay.
I'm a slowpoke. Yeah.
All right, so bear with us, please. So it was the week before spring break, and all through LHS, the English department was busy with Writers' Week, Articles of the Week, and giving some tests. Mr. Tooley in his button-down and Miss Naslund in her boots had just settled down and made a plan to sell some goods. They wanted to rid themselves of things that didn't spark joy as a means of cleaning out their rooms before break and decided to hold a garage sale of sorts. But they were going to need some help. They bopped around the hallways of LHS looking for people to recruit to run the shop. And they heard Mr. Hieronymus wrapping up Romeo and Juliet doing his best Leonardo DiCaprio impression for a 7th period class. Mr. Colsey and Mr. Brum were busy recapping the Real Housewives of New York. And they were really striking out on recruits for the garage sale. Why was everyone so busy the week before break? And to the next hallway, they flew like a flash. They saw Mrs. Singleton and Mr. Ebling walking laps during their prep. "Hey, don't be a slowpoke," yelled Mr. Ebling. Mrs. Singleton said, "My legs aren't as long as yours. I'll get there when I get there." Since everyone upstairs seemed busy, they rounded the corner looking for help. Mr. Tooley said, "Hold on, is that Katie Holmes?" But alas, it was Mrs. Shanebeck prepping for her upcoming lesson. Luckily, they bumped into Mr. Reef as he returned from his lunch. "Hey, look what I found in my glove box, a first edition copy of Where the Wild Things Are." Mr. Tooley said, "Does that spark joy for you?" As Mr. Reef contemplated this, they brought him outside to start the sale. As the sale came to a close later that afternoon, we could hear in the distance, "Happy spring break to all, and to all a good night." That's it.
Okay. So this was a lot harder than it looks. But here we go. The blood coagulated. Shush! Shh! This is dark. No laughing. The blood coagulated and thick as glue made my stomach churn as I tried desperately to conceal it. Why did I use the tire gauge as the weapon? I had other options. Of course, there are other options. There are always other options. What about the Snickers bar in the glove box? There in case I need a quick shot of sugar, and I usually need a quick shot of sugar. You see, I don't move very quickly. Some even call me a slowpoke. I used to take offense to that, but I don't anymore because most people love me, one of the cutest in the zoo. People tell me that a lot. You try to be a penguin and move quickly. Yes, I'm a slowpoke, and I revel in that. In fact, most times you'll find me just chilling in my front yard. Shout out to Ben. But back to that fateful day. That day I decided to use the tire gauge as the weapon. I didn't wake up that day thinking I was going to commit a horrible crime. In fact, it was just a normal day. A penguin, out of work, needing to sell all of her possessions just to get by. Tax cut? Tax cut? Seriously? What tax cut? So I take all my possessions I don't need anymore, a back scratcher, a knee brace, gloves, my tricycle, to try to sell it in my garage sale. And then I see her, that person who walked in to buy my treasures. Who is she? Is she supposed to be here? I see something protruding from her pocket. It's her Oscar. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She's in front of me. The best of the best, Meryl Streep. I run to her, which is to say, I do my slowpoke shuffle to her. As I'm about to give her a great big hug, I look at her again. This isn't Meryl Streep. Oh no, I feel deflated, wilted. I can no longer take it in my range. I take the tire gauge, and with all the force of my pedal arms, I shove it into her left ear until I see it sticking out of her right ear. I have quite a mess on my hands. And now I'm just a slowpoke, murdering penguin, out of work, and sad that I now never get to meet Meryl.
And that is why she was one of my favorite teachers in high school, Miss Holtsford. Wonderful. All right, so now you guys get to decide. We'll see how this goes. Who in our narrative writing competition the winner is by a round of applause. So, first, Miss Frederick. And second, Bernie Sanders, government teacher. Well done, both of you. That was fantastic. All right, we have time for questions. We have time for questions. Miss Naslin wants to know, Miss Holtsford, what's wrong with you? You don't have to answer that. Here we go.
What inspired you to have the main character be a penguin?
Is Ben here? Is anybody here from my third hour class? Okay, so it just came up last period. Why did it come up? I don't know. We were just talking about penguins. And then, well, I did have that. I had penguins and a zoo and Nebraska and the floods, but then I took that out. So I just went with the penguin. So it just came up last period, that's why.
Any other questions? Oh.
Thank you. So I really like the idea of the tire gauge being the weapon. I thought that was really creative. I was wondering, what inspired you to make that as your weapon of choice?
Because I have a tire gauge in my glove box. And actually, I wanted to use a map. Like you guys don't, have you ever seen a map, you know, like on paper? I wanted to use that, but then I didn't know what to do with the map. So I thought tire gauge, and I didn't know I was going to stick it into an ear, but then I thought that would be kind of cool. Then that's not the right word. It would be gory.
Would you have written this if this was not your last year?
Pardon me?
Would you have written this if this was not your last year here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's a true story.
Could you demonstrate how a penguin would hold hold a tire gauge, please?
That's excellent. Yes, of course I can.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's how it went. In my head, that's what was going on.
So if that's how a penguin holds a tire gauge, does that mean like the person was like 3 feet off the ground in order for like?
Where are you?
Right next to me.
Oh. Can you ask that again?
Sorry. How high was the person that got murdered in order for like a penguin to be able to jam a tire?
Well, you didn't ask me about how this penguin has like an amazing vertical. I mean, she's got some hops. So she jumped up and did that at the same time.
Will
Seriously.
there be a part 2 with details of the court case?
Where are you? Nice. Yeah, part 2 next year. What? Yeah. Just to do this, yeah.
I was wondering, you said at the end that the penguin was upset because they would never meet Meryl Streep. And how do you know that's not going to happen? I mean...
That's good. I should have left that. Obviously, I don't write very much. I should have said, and now I'm just a slow poke murdering penguin, out of work and sad that I might not meet Meryl. But never say never. Because I would just think that Meryl just might not come to the penguin to visit, but she might.
Ms. Frederick, quick question for you. I'm pretty sure I detected a lot of rhyming in that story, yes? How did you decide what you were going to rhyme with? Like, how did that come about?
Well, initially, I was thinking, like, 'twas the night before spring break, like, 'twas the night before Christmas, and then I thought, well, I don't have time to figure that out and rhyme all that and write all that. So I just rhymed as much as I could, and then the rest kind of just happened. So pretty exciting stuff.
Miss Holtsfield, what's your plan for retirement? Like, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Well, can't you see? I'm going to find a publisher and just go with it. Well, I'm actually, I usually say this to people who ask. I'm not retiring. I'm going from full-time to part-time. So I still hope, I will be here coaching basketball. And so I'll still be around here. I will travel some. I want to do some volunteer work up at the Lake County Courthouse, being a child advocate, and then do some traveling. I already said that. And then come back, Writers Week 2020, Penguin Part 2.
Miss Frederick, why the night before Christmas? It was just St. Patty's Day.
Gosh, my calendar's off. I think I was just thinking, like, we're on the precipice of something big, like spring break, because I know you guys are ready, right? So are all your teachers. So I was kind of trying to align with that.
Who did you say was watching The Real Housewives?
That would be Mr. Colsey and Mr. Brum.
Is that
You guys
based
know?
on knowledge?
Just experience, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Ms. Holtsford, I just wanted you to know that Mr. Roshan is here, and he came to see your story.
Where?
He's back here.
That guy's awesome! Give it up for Steve
Mr. Roshan is a former LHS Special Services teacher. When did you retire?
This is my 5th year retired.
5th year retired. He is not out of work and using tire gauges to do anything nefarious.
Yet. I have to admit, though, I came today because when I saw that you were doing improv, I was hoping to be able to feed you with the scenario of 2 Whigs and a Federalist walk into a bar. Go.
I got nothing.
Ms. Holtsford, when you came out before you read your story, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Frederick the same question, you said it was a lot harder than you thought it was going to be. Can you explain why it was hard? And then Ms. Frederick, the same question.
That's a good question. I just am not that creative. I mean, I think in 20 minutes, I thought I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. But then coming in, well, first of all, that when third hour we talked about a penguin, and like, oh, you can use a penguin. So I thought, well, maybe I can use a penguin. And then when one of the words was slowpoke, I'm like, yes, I can use the penguin, because that's going to be the slowpoke. And then I just thought that maybe if I do something kind of gory, I could think of the next sentence, and then the next sentence, and then the next sentence. So that's kind of how I did it.
And I think I do a lot of writing in my job at LHS, but it's mostly about facts and data and grades and stuff like that. So then I thought, okay, well, to be creative, like write what you know, write what's familiar, and I know your English teachers, and they're right here, so they're easy targets. And yeah, having them in it made the creative part a little more easy, and I think we can all picture them getting into shenanigans, like in the story.